Welcome back to the Missing 411 podcast. Each year, search and rescue teams are called out across the American landscape to look for people who've inexplicably gone missing. These are not just simple accidents or cases of wandering off. These mysterious disappearances served as the very foundation for the work of former police officer David Paulides. The Missing 411 phenomenon has since swept the nation, forcing millions to confront the strange, sometimes terrifying events that occur in our wildest places. These are incidents that defy conventional explanation and leave behind a chilling void, a cold case file marked unsolved. Today, we examine a disturbing series of cases where individuals, in moments of absolute focus or familiarity, seem to simply vanish into the ether, proving that sometimes the forest possesses a dark, profound secret. Our first case is the deeply unsettling vanishing of 20-year-old Christopher Tomkins on January 25, 2002. Christopher was a dedicated, hard-working man, deeply respected within his community in Ellerslie, Georgia. He was part of a construction surveying crew of 4, methodically working in a dense, wooded area in Harris County. The men maintained a rigorous spacing of about 50 feet, heads down, fully concentrated on their tasks. At approximately 1:30 p.m., after a brief lunch break, the colleague nearest to Christopher spoke with him for a moment. He then turned his head away, focusing on his equipment for what could not have been more than a few seconds. When he looked back, Christopher was gone, as if a curtain had been drawn in the Georgia pines, instantly erasing a man from the landscape. The chilling reality of Christopher's disappearance settled in when his colleagues discovered his tools were still lying on the ground where he had just stood. This suggested a sudden, unplanned departure, or perhaps an immediate removal by some unknown force. When police arrived, the search immediately became strange. One of Christopher's heavy work boots was found inexplicably hanging from a rusty barbed wire fence, close to the scene of his vanishing. Even more bizarrely, a thin blue thread, confirmed to be from his work pants, was found snagged on the same fence wire. And finally, a small cluster of coins, loose change, lay scattered right at the fence line, a disturbing offering to the wilderness. Investigators searched exhaustively for any sign of biological material, struggle, or animal attack, but the scene was sterile. The mystery only intensified 6 months later when a farmer less than a mile away made a disturbing discovery. The missing second boot, confirmed to be Christopher's. This suggested he somehow moved a great distance while essentially hopping, or perhaps that the item was deliberately moved after he vanished. Though investigators entertained theories involving his coworkers, nothing could ever be substantiated, and they were quickly ruled out as suspects. The company owner's vague claim that Christopher had been acting strangely before he went missing offered no real leads, just a layer of confusion. Despite the family's persistent belief in foul play, the official police conclusion remains baffling. Christopher Tomkins simply walked away from his boots and his job to start a new life. This is the unbelievable final explanation for a man abandoned at a strange, coin-strewn fence in the woods. Our focus shifts now to the baffling case of 67-year-old James J. Arthur, or Jim, a decorated Army veteran who disappeared in July 2008 in Madera County, California. Jim was exceptionally familiar with the outdoors and maintained excellent health, making his vanishing all the more confounding. On July 28th, he left his family with a clear itinerary. He was going for a photography hike, equipped with his Olympus camera, walking stick, and a very conspicuous red backpack. He was scheduled to be home before sunset, a promise he failed to keep, prompting an immediate search in the Star Lakes area. Despite the speed of the search, the wilderness offered only one immediate clue. Jim's truck, found abandoned the following day near the Iron Lakes Reservoir entrance. There was no sign of struggle, and no useful evidence was found inside the vehicle. A flicker of hope emerged when 2 witnesses reported seeing Jim on the trail leading to Iron Lakes, telling them he had paused only to catch his breath. This sighting placed him firmly on a known path. Yet, extensive searches across the area, covering multiple connecting lakes and trails, failed to turn up any subsequent sign of him. Jim had stepped onto a path that simply swallowed him whole, denying rescuers any trace of his intended destination. The Jim Arthur case is perhaps the most chilling example of a clean disappearance in the missing 411 records. After 16 years, and despite massive searching efforts across rugged terrain, not a single piece of his equipment, not his camera, not his walking stick, not his clothing, and most incredibly, not his bright red backpack has ever been found. Seasoned investigators know that the wilderness almost always yields some evidence of a struggle or disorientation. But Jim left nothing. How could an experienced veteran, fully equipped, vanish so completely that the ground itself refuses to yield a single clue? His total, utter disappearance suggests not disorientation, but the involvement of a highly efficient, unseen force. In June 2015, the unforgiving depths of the Grand Canyon added river guide Morgan Eliasheimer, age 22, to its list of the vanished. Morgan was an experienced outdoorsman, working an 8-day rafting trip down the Colorado River. On day 6, near River Mile 213 by Pumpkin Springs, the lead guide had a brief conversation with Morgan, who was planning to take a short break. Morgan was clearly visible, standing near a campfire with several other people, and importantly, he was wearing a flotation device. The lead guide simply turned to address a client standing nearby, a momentary distraction of only a few seconds. When he looked back, Morgan had utterly vanished, literally evaporated from the center of a crowded campsite. The immediate search for Morgan escalated rapidly when he failed to appear for dinner, prompting the group to alert authorities. Searchers held on to hope, given Morgan's strong swimming skills and the fact he was wearing a life vest. They combed the river between mile markers 211 and 225, extending the search deep into the canyon. Every single client and raft operator was questioned, but no one could explain the impossible disappearing act. 6 days of intensive searching across a huge, accessible area of the park resulted in not one fiber of evidence. No clothing, no personal items, and no sign of the flotation device. While a river drowning remains a possible, terrifying end, the sudden nature of the vanishing, without a sound or struggle, strongly fuels speculation of something far stranger and more immediate at work. Our journey takes us high up the notorious slopes of Mount Shasta, California, where 69-year-old Carl Herbert Landers set out in May 1969. Carl was an active, determined hiker, bent on reaching the summit of this mountain known for its strange tales and disappearances. He and his 2 companions began their ascent at 4 a.m., trudging through deep, difficult snow. After camping overnight, Carl complained of feeling unwell, possibly suffering from severe altitude sickness, yet he insisted on continuing the climb toward Lake Helen. His friend, Milt, followed close behind, maintaining a lockstep path on the exact trail Carl was blazing in the snow. Then, one of the most unsettling moments in missing 411 history took place. Milt looked up to monitor Carl's progress but was shocked to see a completely different climber now walking ahead of him, moving at a suspiciously brisk pace. Carl, who had been there moments before, was simply gone. Milt pressed on to Lake Helen, certain he would find his friend resting there, but the lake area was entirely empty of Carl. A massive search was launched, hindered by dropping mountain temperatures. But the mountain refused to speak. Decades later, with countless subsequent hikers crossing the very same terrain, not a single piece of Carl's gear or clothing has ever been recovered. The silent substitution of one climber for another on that snowy, isolated trail remains a truly inexplicable mystery. We now revisit the 1981 case of 84-year-old Reverend Maurice Doc Dam in Colorado's Pike National Forest. Doc was an avid rockhound, hunting for valuable topaz with his friend, David McSherry. Doc suffered from a blood disorder and required assistance to move, struggling significantly on his own. The 2 men were digging only 50 yards apart. After 2 hours, David left Doc to collect his own gear before heading home. When David returned moments later, Doc was not there. The disappearance was immediately rendered bizarre by the fact that Doc's digging tools were also gone. A man who could barely walk on his own had seemingly packed up and moved rapidly away from his location, instantly and silently. David quickly checked the car, assuming Doc had somehow struggled his way up the hill, but the vehicle was empty. In a desperate attempt to guide his elderly friend back, David waited and then began honking the car horn repeatedly and loudly. Given his proximity and limited mobility, Doc should have heard the sound and called out for help or responded in some way. But there was only the persistent, maddening silence of the forest. The subsequent 5-day search by authorities, utilizing K9 teams, yielded no scent, no struggle, and no tracks leading away. The perplexing situation, a medically compromised man disappearing with his heavy tools, ignoring a clear auditory signal, has led to theories ranging from foul play to self-termination in the wilderness. Regardless of the theory, the facts remain an impenetrable puzzle. In 1968, the Porcupine Mountains in Wisconsin were the setting for the perplexing disappearance of 19-year-old student Michael Larson. Michael told his mother he was getting a haircut, a simple lie concealing a planned trip. He took a map of the Porkies and a poncho, and then, crucially, withdrew $650 in cash before he vanished. Days later, his green Volkswagen was found abandoned near a gravel pit, presenting a scene that screamed of premeditated action. The license plate had been removed entirely, and the keys were left in the ignition with a full tank of gas. Michael was a smart student who understood navigation, making his decision to ditch his vehicle in such a manner highly suspicious. After 7 months of fruitless searching, a hunter made a grim, pivotal discovery: a shoe containing a human foot. A subsequent search of the immediate area 50 yards away uncovered the second boot, in the same unsettling condition. Investigators noted what appeared to be unmistakable bear bite marks on both pieces of footwear. While they could not definitively link the remains to Michael at the time, the discovery was horrifying. Even with this clue, search dogs were unable to track any further evidence, and none of Michael's clothing or other equipment was ever found. To add a final, frustrating layer to the case, the recovered remains have since been lost, preventing modern DNA technology from solving this cold case. The sheer emptiness surrounding the site, save for the 2 gnawed boots, suggests a sudden, total extraction from the wilderness. We travel west to Washington State for the unsettling 2018 disappearance of experienced hiker Samantha Sayers from Vesper Peak. Sam set out alone for a challenging, familiar hike, meticulously letting her boyfriend, Kevin, know her plans. The trail register confirms her start time. Multiple hikers saw her at the summit in the afternoon, where she was seen sitting, eating, and observing her surroundings. By 8 p.m., her phone was unreachable, and Kevin, rushing to the scene, found Sam's car silently waiting in the parking lot. A massive search effort ensued, including infrared technology and expert trackers, yet the rugged mountain refused to surrender her. The search for Sam lasted 3 weeks, producing nothing conclusive. The one potential clue came from a hiker who reported seeing Sam walking in the wrong direction on the trail, though too far away to alert her. If accurate, this suggests disorientation, but it does not account for the total absence of physical evidence. Sam was a strong, organized hiker, yet she vanished from a popular, well-traveled route without dropping a single item of gear. Rumors of abduction or foul play have long shadowed this case, fueled by the sheer impossibility of her vanishing act. Despite a private investigator's efforts, the complete lack of recovered items, no backpack, no poles, no sign of struggle, leaves the fate of Samantha Sayers as another haunting enigma. Returning to the Grand Canyon in 2021, we have the case of Charles Lyon, a 49-year-old man from Texas. Charles was last seen at a nearby hotel before driving to the South Rim, where his car was found abandoned. The vehicle was completely empty, having been parked on or around June 11th. A 3-month intensive search by the National Park Service and multiple resources was launched. Yet, the vast, unforgiving canyon walls failed to produce a single clue, forcing the search into a limited, reactive mode. The most confounding aspect of this case is the total lack of a point last seen. No one saw Charles walk onto a trail, and no one reported seeing him hiking anywhere. He simply drove to a remote parking spot, and with no witnesses or evidence, stepped into an immediate, profound silence. Our final case is the meagerly documented disappearance of 68-year-old Barry Joeltran from Glacier National Park in July 2020. Barry's car was discovered parked in the Kintla Lake area, triggering a search when he failed to make contact with anyone. Park rangers scoured the area, but found only one small, unsettling clue: a pair of sunglasses discovered in Kintla Lake, never definitively confirmed as his. K9 teams showed a slight interest near the lake outlet, but ultimately failed to pick up any scent. Despite the use of helicopters and specialized underwater vehicles, none of Barry's clothing or possessions have ever been recovered. With so few details and a complete lack of evidence, Barry Tran's case quickly went cold, leaving him as another inexplicable ghost claimed by the remote, beautiful, and deeply unsettling American wilderness. The collected evidence from these missing 411 cases presents a terrifying, uniform pattern. Individuals disappear quickly, often in proximity to others, and leave behind either bizarre, perplexing clues or, perhaps more commonly, nothing at all. Seasoned veterans vanish as easily as students. The wilderness seems to deploy a silent, efficient mechanism for removing people, a force that leaves behind no traces of struggle, no signs of life, and no bodies to find. For all the resources, dedication, and technology of modern search and rescue teams, these individuals remain beyond our current understanding. They are the permanently missing, and their stories serve as a haunting, perpetual warning about the unseen depths and dangers of the American wilderness.